from French dukes to Russian tsars, from British earls to Holy Roman emperors. Discover the fascinating hierarchy of noble ranks that shaped five great European powers. 1. Emperor and Empress, the ultimate power. Imagine having the power to rule over vast empires spanning multiple countries and cultures. That's exactly what emperors and empresses did across Europe. The word emperor comes from the Latin imperator, originally used for military commanders. These supreme rulers sat at the very top of the noble hierarchy, managing enormous territories with diverse peoples, languages, and traditions. Think of the Holy Roman Emperor controlling much of Central Europe, or the Russian Tsar ruling the massive Russian Empire. Their responsibilities went far beyond mere power. They had to balance complex politics, handle diplomatic relations, and often lead their nations in times of war. These monarchs weren't just ceremonial figures. They were the ultimate decision-makers who shaped the fate of millions across their domains. 2. King and Queen, the classic royalty. Kings and queens are the most recognizable symbols of royal power across European history. The word king comes from Old English signing and queen from quen. These monarchs rule a single kingdom and typically inherit their throne from their parents. Picture the King of Spain or Queen of England. These are the figures we see in grand ceremonies, wearing crowns and making crucial decisions for their nations. Beyond the glamour and pageantry, they carry enormous responsibilities, including making laws, representing their country internationally, and serving their people with dedication. Queens can be categorized differently. A queen regnant rules in her own right with full royal authority like a king. A queen consort is the wife of a reigning king participating in ceremonial duties, and a queen dowager retains her title and status even after her husband's death. Their lives perfectly blend tradition, duty, and public service. 3. Archduke and Archduchess, the Habsburg elite. The titles of Archduke and Archduchess represent a unique step above Duke, but below Emperor in the noble hierarchy. This prestigious rank was particularly important in the Austrian Habsburg dynasty, where archdukes wielded significant power and often managed crucial parts of the vast empire. Think of them as senior executives in a massive imperial corporation, each responsible for governing important territories and regions. Archdukes and archduchesses maintained their own elaborate courts and were deeply involved in the day-to-day administration of their assigned domains. They played essential roles in both political and social life of the empire, serving as trusted advisors to the emperor while helping maintain order and effective governance throughout their regions. These nobles were often groomed from birth for leadership, receiving extensive education in politics, military strategy, and diplomacy to prepare them for their weighty responsibilities within the imperial structure. 4. Grand Duke and Grand Duchess, the powerful territories. Grand Dukes and Grand Duchesses rank just below kings and queens while wielding substantial power over their domains. The term Grand Duke emerged in 1569 for the ruler of Tuscany to denote a powerful duke whose realm was significant but not large enough to qualify as a full kingdom. These nobles rule over grand duchies, which are important and influential territories that fall short of kingdom status in size or population. Luxembourg provides a perfect modern example, being led by a Grand Duke whose constitution describes his role as head of state, serving as a symbol of national unity and guardian of independence. Grand Dukes and Grand Duchesses often governed strategically important regions that required strong leadership and diplomatic skills. Their territories typically featured wealthy cities, important trade routes, or crucial military positions that made them valuable allies or dangerous enemies to neighboring kingdoms and empires throughout European history. 5. Prince and Princess, the royal family. Princes and princesses are often children or close relatives of kings and queens, deriving their prestigious titles from the Latin princeps, meaning the first. The husband of a queen regnant is usually titled prince consort, while historically daughters of monarchs were simply called lady, until the 18th century, when King George I's descendants were formally titled Prince or Princess of Great Britain and Ireland. These royals sometimes govern their own areas known as principalities, giving them real administrative power beyond ceremonial duties. The Prince of Wales, for instance, serves as the traditional title for the heir to the British throne, while the Princess of Monaco oversees a small, but internationally famous territory on the French Riviera. Princes and princesses often serve as diplomatic ambassadors, representing their royal families at state functions, international ceremonies, and important political events throughout Europe and beyond their borders. 6. Duke and Duchess. The high-ranking nobles. Dukes and duchesses are high-ranking nobles who usually govern a duchy, which represents a significant territory within a kingdom or empire. Think of famous examples like the Duke of Edinburgh or the Duchess of Cambridge, whose titles carry enormous prestige and deep historical connections to specific regions. The title comes from the French duc, itself derived from the Latin dux, meaning leader, a term originally used in Republican Rome for military commanders without official governmental rank. During the Middle Ages, the Germanic title Herzog was particularly prominent among various monarchies, and later in feudal systems, they became the highest-ranking peers directly under the king. Their positions came with vast responsibilities including territorial administration, military leadership, and serving as key advisors to the crown. Today, with the notable exception of Luxembourg, which is led by a Grand Duke, no dukes rule as independent monarchs, but their titles still command respect and influence. 7. Marquis and Marchioness. The border guardians. Marquises and Marchionesses rank just below dukes in the complex hierarchy of European nobility, holding territories that were historically crucial for national defense. The word marquis entered English from Old French in the late 13th or early 14th century, originally meaning ruler of a border area where constant vigilance was required against foreign threats. These nobles managed border territories known as marches, which served as the first line of defense against invading armies and required skilled military leadership. The title of Marquis was a relatively late addition to the British peerage system, and unlike some other noble ranks, none of the original English lords held this particular distinction. On the evening of Queen Victoria's coronation in 1838, Prime Minister Lord Melbourne explained that marquises were not originally English, and people were often granted this title when it wasn't deemed appropriate to make them dukes, creating an intermediate rank of considerable importance and prestige. 8. Earl and Countess. The regional rulers. Earls, known as counts throughout most of Europe, and their female counterparts countesses represent mid-level nobles ranking below marquises but above viscounts in the established hierarchy. The title Earl stands as one of the oldest distinctions in British nobility, originating from the Old English word Earl, meaning a man of noble birth or elevated rank. This ancient word connects closely to the Scandinavian jarl, showing the deep historical roots of this prestigious position. In Scotland, the title of Earl successfully assimilated the concept of mormaer, the Gaelic term used for regional or provincial rulers who governed large territories. The office of Earl evolved naturally from the Anglo-Saxon alderman, who served as the chief administrative officer appointed directly by the king to govern important regions. During King Knut's reign, these ealdormen transformed into earls, governing territories in the king's name and wielding considerable autonomous power throughout their designated domains and regions.